Okay, we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling. We're a little shy of quorum, which is 11. We got 9 here, so hopefully some more people will be filtering in. We don't have anything to vote on or anything to pass from terms of regulations. So it's really more informational process to remind us of all the things that we did, but. With the support and the intellect and the due diligence, the laborious process of the budget folks did, which we deeply appreciate that. They're going to basically give us a rundown of the government, general government, finance administration, and personnel budgets and so forth. So, if you do have a question, just let me know. All the staff is down, be presenting, so just raise your hand, throw something, napping tomato, whatever, and then I'll recognize you and so forth. So make sure that Representative Bray really yells out because he's way over there by himself. But any event, anyway, Jenny, I don't know how you want to go about this. We got general government first, finance administration, personnel. We got about an hour, so I'll just let it go to you. But do you want to call roll? If you want to go and call roll, and then we'll have Jenny come up.
Senator Mills.
Here.
Senator Thomas. Representative Brown. Representative Dossett. Representative Gentry. Representative Imes.
Here.
Representative DJ Johnson.
Here.
Representative Palumbo. Representative Raymond. Representative Tate. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel.
Here.
Representative Bowling.
Here.
Representative Bray. Representative Hale. Representative Petrie. Representative Bratcher.
Here.
Representative Bridges.
Here.
Senator Nemes. Representative Freeland. And Representative Fleming presiding.
Present. This is our first meeting of the general government, finance, personnel, and public retirement interim joint meeting. Today is the 5th of June, Wednesday at 9 o'clock, or a little bit after 9. And as I mentioned before, Jenny and her staff will go over and review the various 3 budgets that's on our agenda. And if you have any questions, just let me know, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much, Jenny, for coming, and all your work on doing this.
Thank you. I will tell you all, I'm Jenny Bannister. I'm the budget director for the General Assembly. I am standing in for our fiscal analyst, Emma Mills, who had a flight delayed. She was supposed to be back today, but she's not going to get back until tomorrow. So forgive me for what I don't know about general government, but I will do my best. But I also have other team members for general government here that I'll let introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm David Talley, a fiscal analyst in the budget office.
I'm Joey Holt, a fiscal analyst in the budget office.
All right, and Justin Perry is back here, also a fiscal analyst. So we'll get started with general government. This is just a general budget overview of what we have appropriated for the next biennium. So Office of the Governor is a total of $7.5 million in fiscal year 25, $7.6 million in fiscal year 26. There's approximately 35 employees in the office. And the Office of the Governor includes the governor's office itself and the expense allowance that is allowed to the governor, the lieutenant governor's office, and also the lieutenant governor's expense allowance. The secretary of the cabinet, that is a dual position that the state budget director is also occupying with the secretary of the cabinet. The Kentucky Commission on Military Affairs, which is a separate commission than military affairs. The Office of Minority Empowerment, that focuses on jobs, education, and health, and is responsible for assessing the utilization of services and programs by minorities and minority-owned businesses. And then Faith-Based Initiatives, which is responsible for establishing policies, priorities, and practices to enable and expand social service programs of faith-based and community nonprofit organizations. Next is the Office of State Budget Director. Total appropriations of approximately $4.4 million in each year. with about 19 employees. And the Office of the State Budget Director contains the Governor's Office of Policy and Management. They're responsible for the preparation and implementation of the executive branch budget as enacted by the General Assembly. The Governor's Office for Policy Research, they perform research and analysis on public policy issues. And then the Governor's Office for Economic Analysis, they perform economic research, forecasting, and revenue estimating for the Commonwealth. Homeland Security, total appropriations of approximately $16 million in each year, with about 20 full-time employees. And Homeland Security includes the Office of Homeland Security, which coordinates the Commonwealth's terrorism prevention and emergency preparedness efforts, and oversees the Kentucky Intelligence Fusion Center. The Commercial Mobile Radio Service is also included in that appropriation unit. They provide the means and mechanisms to comply with the FCC on 911 services, particularly as it relates to wireless calls. And then the Law Enforcement Protection Program, which provides funds for equipment to local law enforcement agencies across the state. Department of Veterans Affairs, total appropriations of approximately $124 million in the first year, fiscal year 25, and $136.5 million in fiscal year 26. Veterans Affairs includes the Veterans Centers, which provide support, skilled nursing, and long-term care at the state veterans' homes. Veterans Cemeteries, which provides for the interment of veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces and eligible family dependents at the 5 state cemeteries. And they also leverage U.S. DVA grant and per diem programs to develop state veteran nursing homes. And then Veterans Services, they provide services to veterans. There's a benefits division and a state programs division. The benefits division assists veterans and their families with preparing documents, submitting claims for benefits, including pension, health care, and employment services. And then the state programs division provides community outreach and wraparound services, including things like homelessness, employment and training, and transition services for wounded and disabled veterans.
If you don't mind, Jenny, I think we do have a question. Is that okay to just interrupt
Sure.
you so I can give you
Yeah.
a breather? So, Representative Johnson has a question.
All right. I don't know if the mics are working or not. But, and this might be a get back to me answer, but do you happen to know how many of the beds are filled in the VA centers at this point?
I do have that information, but not with me, so I will provide that to you. Okay. Here you go. Go right on my-
And Jenny, if you don't mind, and I don't know if you can articulate this, but can you? I always like, I appreciate the fiscal years and so forth. I always like to have a frame of reference. Are we looking at if you know? Could you comment? This budget's been increased by X amount, or this has been a flat line, or this has gone down. And if you don't know, that's fine. But maybe just don't spend a whole lot of time. I just want to just get a real quick thumbnail style of, is this increasing or going down, just on a general sense?
Okay. I can tell you for Veterans Affairs, this is an increase, but mainly because we're fully funding the operations of the new Veterans Center, the Bowling Green Veterans Center. I will do my best, but like I said, Emma is our expert on most of these areas. So, Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, that's the next appropriation unit. The total appropriation here is approximately $431 million in the first year, and $1 billion in fiscal year 26. The majority of those additional federal funds is coming from the BEAD program, from the Infrastructure and Jobs Act at the federal level. So the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority was created to fund the construction of public works, including water, sewer, solid waste, and other infrastructure. They are responsible for the statewide community-based infrastructure planning and coordination of project prioritization. They maintain the Water Resource Information System. and they administer the loan and grant programs to assist in those. So the Fund A, federally assisted wastewater, the Fund B, infrastructure, the Fund C, governmental agencies program, and the Fund F, drinking water revolving loan. And then the newly created Office of Broadband Deployment was created to be the central broadband planning and coordination entity to develop and improve broadband within the Commonwealth.
Go ahead, Senator McDaniels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jenny, would you remind me, why did we see that spike in federal funds in year 2?
It's the BEAD program from the IIJA. Yep.
Thanks.
Senator, did you have another question? Or was that you get, Representative Branch, or did you have a question?
I do, but I'll wait until she's.
Okay, Senator Miles has a question.
The Office of Broadband Deployment, how many employees are in that specific? Has it been stood up yet completely, or what are we expecting?
I don't have that information with me. I will get that to you. I believe they're close. If they aren't fully staffed, I believe they're close.
Okay. Well, it just says 18 employees. Is that all of
That,
K?
for KIA total,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, military affairs, excuse me. The military affairs budget unit receives approximately $141 million in each year, with about 77 full-time employees and about 400 federally funded time-limited employees. Military affairs is responsible for military matters and disaster and emergency services in the Commonwealth. The operations include emergency management, the Kentucky National Guard, and the Bluegrass Station and Armories. And then they also fund and direct the Youth Challenge programs at Fort Knox and Harlan County. The Commission on Human Rights is funded with approximately $2.5 million in each fiscal year and has about 18 employees. The Commission on Human Rights enforces the Kentucky Civil Rights Act and responds to thousands of inquiries each year from citizens who believe they may have been discriminated against, and educates the public and advocates for human and civil rights issues. And then also there is an education and outreach trainings branch that includes fair housing training seminars, fair employment training seminars, diversity training workshops, and sexual harassment trainings.
Go ahead, Senator.
I am correct that the Commission on Human Rights has been flatlined for the last several years.
Yes, I believe so. Nothing else. Okay.
Okay, I'll take the Department for Local Government. This office is a liaison between the governor and lots of local units of government, especially the area development districts. Its forerunner was the Governor's Office of Local Development. There have been several iterations of this. Primarily, this entity works to distribute federal and state grants to local governments. As you can see on the left-hand side of the slide there, a considerable amount, close to $250 or $300 million of their funding is basically passed through from the federal government. Roughly 50 employees in the entirety of the unit, and you can see the division of offices there. The Office of Federal Grants and the Office of State Grants are by far the largest in terms of interactions with local government. Excellent. In general government, there are a few areas. This is the first area where we do the what inside baseballers would call a sheet. So a coal sheet, a tobacco sheet, a lottery sheet. The Department of Local Government is responsible for administering local government economic assistance program and local government economic development program, which are the coal make up the coal sheet. They also, on the right-hand side, you can see several federal grants, community development block grants, Appalachian Regional Commission, and these are driven a lot by the local area development districts. The Department for Local Government works closely with them to administer these grants. As I mentioned on the left-hand side there, local government economic assistance and development funds are coal-related, and there are also some other programs here that the department administers, but basically those coal programs at the state level are the two main programs.
If you don't mind, Representative Johnson has a question.
Yes.
Just real quick, in House Bill 1, we designated several items that are being managed by. Is that going okay? Do you know if the process is working? Because it seemed like there's a whole lot of direct contact with local agencies that would not normally happen.
Yes, we are in routine communication with the department, and they ask us questions, clarifying questions, but those are in the initial stages of being developed, and we keep relatively close tabs on those, so we can provide updates as needed to members if they're interested.
And I recently had a request from DLG come to me for some contact information for, I believe, less than a dozen of the not-for-profits that were receiving funds, so that they could make sure that they get those contracts out the door. So we're working with staff to get those contacts to them. Sure, yeah. And we are happy if the agencies would like to reach out to us. We can assist in getting them to who they need to get to make sure they're going to receive their funds. Okay. Was there a question? I'm sorry. Moving on to the Executive Branch Ethics Commission. This is funded with approximately $1.2 million in each fiscal year, with about 5 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. Executive Branch Ethics Commission administers and enforces the Ethics Code, which governs the conduct of all the executive branch elected officials, employees, and the executive agency lobbyists. They review and house public records, and they promote ethical conduct through training and education, providing guidance and enforcing the code, issuing advisory opinions, registering the lobbyists, and recommending legislation to the General Assembly.
The next appropriation unit is the Secretary of State. It's an elected office and serves as the chief election official for Kentucky and the director of the Department of State. It's organized into 3 offices. The first is the Office of Business Services, which is responsible for all functions relating to business filings and business records for LLCs, corporations, nonprofits, etc., and trademark registration. The Office of Elections administers the filing for all candidates seeking statewide office. They administer election laws and supervise registration and purging of voter rolls, and they advocate for voter participation and engagement. They also administer the Address Protection Program Fund. Last, the Office of Administration is responsible for all fiscal and personnel matters. They maintain land records, maintain records of all official acts of the governor and all legislation passed by the General Assembly. The Office of the Secretary of State currently has 33 full-time filled positions. The appropriation amounts are listed in the left-hand column. As you can see, they receive a little over $6.5 million in restricted funds appropriation in each year, and they did not receive or request a general fund appropriation. The restricted funds are generated mostly from business filing fees for LLCs, corporations, nonprofits, etc., and from candidate filing fees.
State Board of Elections is next appropriation unit. State Board of Elections is approximately $8.7 million in each fiscal year with around 11 employees. The State Board of Elections administers the election laws, oversees registration and purging of voters, appoints political party representatives, certifies election results, provides training of election laws, and assists county clerks with election duties, and conducts voter education programs. The Registry of Election Finance is funded with approximately $1.8 million in each year with about 11 employees. And the Registry of Election Finance administers, regulates, and enforces campaign finance laws.
The next appropriation unit is the Office of Attorney General. It's an elected office and serves as the chief law enforcement officer for Kentucky. There are three primary components: civil litigation, criminal litigation, and solicitor general. The office has 6 administrative units. First is administrative services, which provides administrative support for over 200 employees for human resources, budget execution and support, and IT support, etc. Next is the Department of Criminal Litigation, which includes Department of Criminal Investigations, Office of Prosecutors Advisory Council, Office of Victims Advocacy, Office of Trafficking and Abuse Prevention, Office of Medicaid Fraud and Abuse Control, and Office of Special Prosecutions. Next is the Uninsured Employers Fund. The Attorney General is required to represent the fund in all claims made against it or on its behalf. The fund is automatically part of any workers' compensation claims filed against employers with no workers' compensation insurance coverage. Next is advocacy services, which includes consumer protection, victims advocacy, senior protection. Next is the Department of Civil Litigation, which consists of the Office of Consumer Protection, Office of Civil and Environmental Law, Office of Rate Intervention, and Office of Senior Protection. And last is the Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission, which is responsible for distributing the settlement funds from pharmacies and opioid manufacturers from settlements related to the opioid epidemic. The Office of Attorney General currently has 223 filled positions. 202 of those are full-time. The rest are part-time or other employees. The appropriation amounts are listed in the left-hand column. In FY25, they had total appropriation around $102 million, and in FY26, total appropriations of around $89 million. Their restricted funds are generated mostly from legal services and settlements.
And would you mind refresh our memory on not only AG, but if you also look at DLG, there's obviously not a discrepancy, but a difference of a decline of 102 down to 89. Could you just give me a sort of a background on why such less in terms of appropriations in 2026? What caused that? And then also in DLG is 304 and it's like 258 million. Could you just refresh our memory the fluctuation? Is that more grants? Is that more? I guess what may have caused that huge change?
Part of what's going on in the Attorney General is that there is a reorganization with some units from CHFS, and some are going to Attorney General, and the funding splits have to change partially. So the Attorney General will be receiving money from CHFS to provide those services for, I believe, Ombudsman. Is that correct?
That's Child Protective Services.
So Child Protective Services. Okay. And then
Some could be also settlements, amounts coming in.
the restricted funds are any of the settlements that are paid out. So as those funds, I believe we have some of those settlements that are coming to a close. So the funds reduce.
Okay.
With respect to the Department for Local Government, you're correct. That's mainly changes in grants that are being distributed.
Okay. And not to deviate a little bit, but do you know of any analysis that have been done in terms of when you take out certain parameters within the budget in terms of what the cost per employee is? When I say cost, basically, how much money is going on a per employee basis when you take all the expenses in consideration in terms of what that cost is?
I'm sorry. Are you asking me if we would?
No. Do you know of any study has been performed in order to look at the cost per employee in order to provide a service or to administer a grant or those sorts of things?
That would be essentially sort of a cost allocation. And in order to do that, you would have to have every employee document how they spend their time. I know the Transportation Cabinet does that a lot for highway projects, because the funding streams on those highway projects are so different. I believe the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, a lot of the social workers have to do time allocations in order to document their time based on the funding streams that we'd be going through. But overall in state government, no, to my knowledge, there has not been.
Okay.
It would be pretty labor intensive.
Yeah, no, and you and I have talked about that in the past. I didn't know if there's anything that's occurred since we talked. It's been a while since we talked about that. So, okay, thank you. Go ahead. Is there? Oh, okay, we're fine.
Okay, a unified prosecutorial system. The unified prosecutorial system is comprised of Commonwealth's attorneys and the county attorneys and the Prosecutor Advisory Council. The Commonwealth attorney's appropriation is $84.2 million in fiscal year 25 and $86.9 million in fiscal year 26. There's approximately 440 full-time employees and 165 part-time employees. The county attorneys are funded at around $80.3 million in fiscal year 25 and $83.5 million in fiscal year 26, with about 300 full-time employees and 370 part-time employees. There are 57 Commonwealth's attorneys and 120 county attorneys. The Unified Prosecutorial System is administered by the Prosecutors Advisory Council. They manage the daily activities such as administrative duties, things like that, prepare and monitor the biennial budget, and they oversee the training. And then the Commonwealth's attorneys prosecute violations of criminal and penal laws in circuit court, including felonies in which the death penalty may be imposed. And county attorneys prosecute violations of criminal and penal laws in district court, including felonies, misdemeanors, juvenile cases, and traffic cases.
The next appropriation unit is the Office of the Treasury. It's an elected office whose primary function is to process and distribute all financial documents, transactions of the Commonwealth, including W-2s, electronic wire transactions, etc. It's also responsible for administering the Unclaimed Property Fund. Their restricted fund appropriation is just a general fund transfer to support the operations of the Unclaimed Property Program. They currently have 23 full-time filled positions and 3 other positions, and receive a little over $7 million total appropriation each fiscal year.
Okay, next up is the Department of Agriculture. You can see there on the left-hand side, just under 250 full-time employees. This is a elected constitutional office headed by the Commissioner of Agriculture. It regulates the agriculture industry, but also does a lot of non-agriculture functions that folks would not think about: amusement rides, attractions, safety inspections, fuel pump testing. They also administer the Kentucky Proud program, which is meant to support local agricultural products. That's probably the program that most folks in the general public associate with the Department of Agriculture. I mentioned earlier that there are some sheets associated with the budget. For the Department of Local Government administers the 2 programs that make up the coal sheet. The Kentucky Department of Agriculture, since 2021, has overseen what's known as the tobacco sheet. So the Kentucky Office of Agricultural Policy was created to replace the Governor's Office of Agricultural Policy in 2021. And so you'll see the first line there, tobacco appropriations, almost $40 million in each year going to the Department of Agriculture to be distributed for that program.
Next is the Auditor of Public Accounts. It's an elected office who's responsible for auditing the accounts and financial transactions of all state agencies and county governments. Some types of audits include audits for local officials, fiscal courts, state agencies, special exams, and information technology. They also perform the audit of the state's comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR report. The auditor's office is made up of 3 divisions. First is administration, which provides administrative support for the agency. Next is technology and financial audits. which is responsible for financial statement audits of local government entities, as well as producing the comprehensive annual financial report. They also work with agencies to establish and maintain proper accounting records and internal and administrative controls over public funds. And the last division is the Office of Special Examinations, which is designed to evaluate specific concerns of potential fraud, waste, or other questionable activities. Special examinations are different from routine financial and technological audits in that they are designed to focus specifically on one issue instead of the overall financial statements of the organization. The Office of the Auditor has 116 full-time field positions, 6 part-time employees, and 7 other employees. The appropriation amounts are in the left-hand column, and they receive around $40 million in total appropriations each year.
Senator has a question. Go ahead, Senator.
I'm just curious, what's an other employee? I understand what a full-time employee is, what a part-time employee is. What's an other employee?
I would assume it's a contract employee.
Other employees are generally like interns, interim employees if they just need them for a time limited and they're not federally funded, but it's just a specific task.
Oh, okay, so interns or 1099s would fall in the category of other employees.
Yes, there aren't many other employees in state government, but there are some.
Okay, I was just amused by that term. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have the Kentucky River Authority. It is funded with approximately $16.5 million in fiscal year 25 and $6.7 million in fiscal year 26, with around 9 employees. And the River Authority maintains the current water supply pools supplying 42 counties and more than 780,000 Kentuckians, monitor and improve water quality in the basin, management of water resources to mitigate droughts, provide recreational opportunities, and lock and dam maintenance. There are currently 14 lock and dam structures on the Kentucky River. And then lastly, we have the Kentucky Communications Network Authority with approximately 13 employees and funded with $51.2 million in fiscal year 25 and $55 million in fiscal year 26. KCNA is responsible for the day-to-day management of the Commonwealth's P3 open access broadband network that was known as Kentucky Wired. The availability payments represent the majority of the general fund appropriation, with the remainder supporting contractual obligations, personnel, and operations. The AP payments are $34.5 million in 24, $35.8 million in 26, and $38.8 million in 25 and $38.2 million in 26. Those payments are scheduled to rise throughout the life of the project through 2046. And then the network generated revenues from the state agencies' fees are for use in wholesale. And that's the end.
Okay, Jim, we have 20 minutes because I think we have another meeting right behind this in this room. Is that correct? So if you don't mind, if you could just hit maybe some highlights, if you can do that. If not, I can understand that. But just let you know what our time constraints are.
How do I start the slideshow, David?
All right, good morning. My name is Jeremy Simpson. I'm the budget analyst for Finance and Administration Cabinet. So Finance's Administration Cabinet has approximately 1,400 employees. This excludes property valuation administrators. Its key responsibilities are finance and accounting operations, state purchasing and procurement, tax administration and collection, managing IT, motor vehicle fleet management, and debt issuance. Here's a list of 8 appropriation units that falls under finance. We'll touch on those in more detail shortly. There are 2 other appropriation units that are administratively attached. We'll also touch on those in more detail. Here's just a breakdown of fiscal year 25 and the source of funds. You can see the fiscal year 25 total is $928.6 million. The next slide is broken down by appropriation unit. This table kind of shows you the percentage and where money falls in each appropriation unit for fiscal year 25. So the same thing for fiscal year 26, 1.05 billion for finance, and you can see the breakdown by fund type. Next slide is again by appropriation unit for fiscal year 26. So the first appropriation unit is general administration, approximately 120 employees. For fiscal year 25 and 26 is $54,825,000 appropriated in each year. So in general administration, there are 7 budgetary programs listed there: Secretary's Office, Legal and Legislative Services, Administrative Services, Fleet Management, Postal Services, Policy and Audit, and Gubernatorial Transition. Next page is the Controller's Office. Estimated about 80 employees currently, appropriated at $23 million in each fiscal year. They have 6 budgetary units within this office: the Controller's Office, Local Government Services, Financial Management, Procurement Services, Customer Resource Center, and State Risk and Insurance Services. Next slide is debt service. You can see that there's in fiscal year 25 appropriated amount of $403 million, fiscal year 26 $515 million. This includes most previously authorized general fund and debt service. Also, it issues bonds, combined projects authorized with general fund supported debt, including bond funds for universities. So next is facility and support services, roughly about 250 employees. For fiscal year 25 is appropriated for $74 million, and fiscal year 26 is $82 million. And there are 7 budgetary programs within this appropriation unit: the Commissioner's Office, Facility Development and Efficiency, Real Property, Historical Properties, Building and Mechanical Services, State Surplus Property, Federal Surplus Property.
Jeremy, real quick question. When it comes to historical properties, I assume that includes the old Capitol?
It does, yes.
Do y'all have, do you know how it, let me back up. There are historical properties that have foundations, I think, and then you have the actual property. And do you know, or maybe today might not be the correct format, we can follow up later on, but the dynamics and the working relationships or the appointment process, those sorts of things, and how that foundation and the actual property interrelate, because I think there could be a little bit of muddy water from what I understand. I just want to try to get some clarification on how those operate. So I appreciate that.
We'll get that for you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Representative Bradford, would you mind if we just go ahead and go through this and then come back to you? Is that okay? Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. Next page is county costs. There's appropriated amount in fiscal year 25 of $30 million, and fiscal year 26 $30 million. There's a total of 10 budgetary programs within this. I won't read them all to you for sake of time, but DUI service fees being probably the major one there. statutory payments to local officials from primarily the general fund. So the little note down there is if appropriations are insufficient to meet expenses, then those costs result in obligations from the general fund surplus or budget reserve trust fund accounts. So next slide is Commonwealth Office of Technology. There's approximately 220 employees here. Fiscal year 25 is 139 million appropriated, and fiscal year 26, 141 million appropriated. Within COT, there's a total of 5 budgetary programs: Commonwealth Office of Technology, Chief Information Security Officer, Infrastructure Services, Architecture and Governance, Client Support Services. Next slide is the Department of Revenue. There's approximately 725 employees. Fiscal year 25 is appropriated at 129, almost 130 million. In fiscal year 26, 132 million. There are 8 budgetary programs within this: Commissioner's Office, Property Valuation, Field Operations, Income Tax, Sales and Use Tax, Registration and Operations, Office of Tax Policy and Regulation, and Enforcement. Next page is the Property Valuation Administrators. Appropriated for fiscal year 25 is 72 million, fiscal year 26 is 74 million. I don't have it on this slide, but there's approximately 600 employees there. PVAs are the state officers responsible for performing fair and equitable assessments of over 2.2 million properties statewide. PVA salaries are statutory under KRS 132-590 and based on county population with an annual inflationary adjustments and education incentive payments. So next would be appropriations not otherwise classified or known as ANOT. Appropriated each fiscal year is 16.7 million. And the eligible expenses are there on the right, with guardian ad litem being probably one of your bigger expenses there. Also survivor benefits. Next would be judgments, and there's actually no money appropriated here for these fiscal years, as there's still money carried forward there from past budgets that has not been expensed. So that concludes Finance and Administration Cabinet.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. Representative Bradford, do you have a question for?
I have 3 of them.
Go ahead. Fire
How much would you know how much is in the reserve trust fund, the rainy day fund? Would you know that? Just approximately.
We're going to be going over that in A&R, and at the end of fiscal year 24, we're budgeted to have about $5.2 million. A billion with a B, sorry.
Also, can you send this PowerPoint to us in an email?
Absolutely, we will.
And then the last one, I just want to ask, what your staffing? How are things looking? Do you believe that are you enduring any of the same things the rest of America is enduring with lack of labor?
My office particularly, I will say I am very blessed to have a wonderful team of professionals that work with me. We are small, but we are mighty. So we do occasionally experience the same things. I think overall at LRC we are seeing some turnover, but we've really worked hard to, try to be able to retain employees through some different measures that aren't always monetary. So I think the labor force is, everybody's seeing sort of the same thing, but the entire LRC is a lot smaller than the executive branch and the judicial branch. We are the smallest branch. So we are experiencing things at a much smaller scale.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Senator Mills, did you have a question?
I do. Just a couple real quick. The UI software upgrade, does that run through COT or is that through the unemployment division? Do you know that?
I believe it is actually running through unemployment.
Okay.
I can check for you. I believe the vendor was just selected,
It was.
but I can get more details if you would like that.
Okay. And then on the constitutional officers, is it safe to say that is the Secretary of State still self-sustaining on their budget? Is that the only office on constitutional officers that can say that?
Yes, but they are pretty much the only ones with a dedicated revenue stream.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. A real quick question in regards to the revenue. You said 725 employees. Could you just provide me sort of the past 35 years of what their, what their authorization number of spots they fill and actually that they have for the past 35 years?
35 years?
No, 3 to 5 years.
Oh, 3 to 5. I was like 35. I don't think so. 3 to 5. Yes, I can do that.
I'll speak. Well, my wife says you need to speak more distinctly. Okay, I will. So yes, 3 to 5 years. Yeah, I'd chuckle in that comment too. We got about 10 minutes left, so just let you know.
Okay, this personnel cabinet, approximately 150 employees. They provide human resource management, policy guidance, and administrative support for state agencies of the Commonwealth. They operate the Kentucky Employees Health Plan, known as KEHP, and the Workers' Compensation Program. Provide service to every agency and state government, including school districts and many quasi-government entities in some counties. So there's 5 budget appropriation units within the personnel cabinet. You can see below, and we're going to touch on each of those. For fiscal year 25, there's a total of $143 million appropriated, and you can see the breakdown between the fund types. Next slide is fiscal year 25 by appropriation unit, the breakdown by each appropriation unit there. Same thing for fiscal year 26, $137.5 million. And this is the breakdown by fund type, and this is the breakdown by appropriation unit. Next slide is skipping missing. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
General administration, and there's 120 employees. Still on the wrong page here. All right. General operation is 130 employees, and there is a total of 5 budgetary programs within this: general administration, governmental services, employee relations, employee insurance, and personnel administration. Roughly in each fiscal year of 25 and 26, $33 million is appropriated. So Kentucky Employees Health Plan is, just to touch on this real quick, is KEHP is the Commonwealth Self-Insured Employees Health Insurance Plan and Flexible Spending Account. It covers 300,000 people in Kentucky. It's a trust fund that provides reserves for increases in health costs and to keep premiums low for state employees. Here's a breakdown, just a quick chart of the percentage of what KEHP membership looks like. The next page is Public Employees Deferred Compensation Authority. They have 14 employees currently, and roughly $8 million in each fiscal year appropriated. It's self-funded voluntarily, supplemental retirement benefits program for Kentucky public employees. Just to note, the most recent data that they have provided us is that 95% of new employees that are automatically enrolled in this stayed enrolled in this or retained. Next slide is workers' compensation benefits and reserve. This is 6 employees. Appropriation for each fiscal year is roughly $24 million. Self-insured workers' compensation program for the Commonwealth includes KCTS, Murray State University, various quasi-governmental organizations, volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers, employees of some county clerks or sheriff's offices with when county's population is 70,000 or more. Would note here that transportation has its own risk management program. Coverage currently is provided for over 60,000 employees and volunteers. Next is Personnel Board, which is actually part of general government, but we'll cover it here. They have 5 employees and 10 contract hearing officers. In fiscal year 25 and 26, appropriated about $1.2 million in each year. They are comprised of 7 members, 5 that are governor appointed and 2 that are elected by the peers. This board meets monthly and funded by assessments, serves as a quasi-judicial capacity, and assists in the personnel cabinet in the development of administrative regulations pertaining to classified services, and also conducts hearings for any non-probationary employee who is dismissed, demoted, suspended, or otherwise penalized for cause. Next is the Fixed Allocation Non-Hazardous Pension Fund. This is appropriated in fiscal year 25 at $75.6 million and in fiscal year $69.7 million. This general fund is provided for a statewide pool in each fiscal year for quasi-state agencies to continue their baseline subsidy for employer contributions and provide the additional necessary funds to finance the increased costs attributable to shift to a fixed allocation for the unfunded liability of non-hazardous retirements plans and employers' contributions. And last slide is State and Salary Compensation Fund. This is a statewide pool to provide the additional funds necessary for the 25 and 26 information technology job classification raises, and in fiscal year 25 and 26 there is a 1.5 in restricted funds allocated for each.
Very good. Any additional comments or no?
We do
questions?
appreciate you having us.
Oh, any questions from the committee? Very good. Jenny, I know you said you're blessed. Actually, we're blessed to have you and your staff for what y'all go through. I know there's not enough thank yous, and the public really doesn't know what y'all go through, particularly during the budget process in this past spring. But we want to say thank you very much for your time that y'all put into this, and we do appreciate everything that y'all do. Y'all a great group, and I think I'd stack y'all against any state LRC similar to structure what y'all do. So thank y'all very much for coming in and helping us out.
Thank you, sir.
And we stand adjourned.